Hello everyone, welcome to the election future. Today we are going to evaluate the most risky places for you. We are going to take a look at the 2024 election map based on the latest polls in all 50 states to see who is the favorite to win the election in November.
With the election drawing closer, the polls are becoming more and more interesting. With the release of new polls in key swing states, I will be filling in my 2024 election map to predict who will take the Oval Office come November. Starting with Trump's safe states, we have Montana, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska at large, and its first and third districts, Missouri, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and Alaska. Trump begins with a solid base of 98 electoral votes. Now moving on to Kamala Harris's safe states, we can count on California, Connecticut, Illinois, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, Vermont, D.C., Delaware, Maine's 1st District, Maine at large, and New York. With these solid states filled in, Harris leads with 145 electoral votes to the former president's 98. Next, we move on to the likely states, which are those that will go to either Trump or Harris by margins between 7 and 15 percentage points. These states don't appear likely to flip come November. I will begin Trump's likely category with Ohio, which continues to be a reliable state for Trump. In the latest poll conducted by Morning Consult among 1,558 likely voters, Trump holds an 8-point lead over Harris. While this is a slight dip from previous polls, where Trump led by 10 points, it remains consistent with Ohio's recent voting trends. Trump won Ohio by 8.1 points in both the 2016 and 2020 elections. Once a pivotal swing state, Ohio has shifted more solidly to the Republican side in recent cycles, largely driven by its rural and working-class voters. With a solid 8-point lead, Ohio looks set to remain in Trump's favor for this election cycle. South Carolina continues to be a likely state for Trump, maintaining its long-standing position as a Republican stronghold. According to a recent Emerson College poll, Trump holds a comfortable 14-point lead over Harris. This margin mirrors results from previous elections, where Trump won South Carolina by 14.3 points in 2016 and 11.7 points in 2020. South Carolina's political landscape has remained largely stable, with strong Republican support driven by conservative rural areas and evangelical voters. Despite the absence of head-to-head polling between Trump and Harris specifically, historical data suggests that South Carolina will remain firmly in the Republican column this election cycle. We now move to Arkansas, a state that has been loyal to the Republican side for the past 6 elections and currently remains Republican with a 15-point gap. According to a poll conducted by Hendrix College among 696 likely voters, Arkansas is on the verge of becoming a safe state. Texas remains in the likely category for Trump. A new poll by Morning Consult, which surveyed 2,940 likely voters, shows Trump with an 8-point lead over Harris. While Texas has been a Republican stronghold for decades, shifting demographics and urban growth in cities like Houston, Dallas, and Austin have made the state more contested in recent elections. However, Trump's 8-point lead suggests that while Texas remains Republican, the race is closer than in previous election cycles, making it a key state to watch. Mississippi remains in Trump's likely column, continuing its history as a reliably red state. However, recent polling shows Trump leading Harris by 9 points, a margin that is notably narrower than in past elections. In 2020, Trump won Mississippi by 16.5 points, highlighting some erosion in the Republican base this cycle. Despite this shift, the state's long-standing Republican support, driven by conservative voters, ensures that Mississippi is still expected to remain in Trump's favor this election cycle. Now I'll move to the blue side, starting with Washington, which has been a Democratic stronghold since 2008, consistently voting blue in presidential elections. Harris currently leads Trump by 14 points. According to a public policy survey sponsored by the Northwest Progressive Institute, this solid Democratic advantage reflects Washington's political landscape, which has shifted decisively to the left in recent decades, especially in the urban centers of Seattle and surrounding King County. The state's strong base of progressive voters, combined with its increasing focus on climate change and tech-driven policies, has made it a key part of the Democratic electoral foundation. With such a wide margin, Washington is expected to remain comfortably in Harris's column, continuing its trend as a reliable blue state. New Hampshire has moved up from the leaning category in favor of Harris, showcasing an interesting electoral trend. In 2016, Clinton narrowly defeated Trump in the state by just 0.37 points. By 2020, Biden expanded that margin to 7.4 points, strengthening the Democratic foothold. However, early 2024 polls showed a tightening race when Biden was still the presumptive nominee. Since Harris entered the race, she has managed to widen the gap once again. According to the latest poll from the University of New Hampshire, Harris now holds an 11-point lead over Trump, indicating that New Hampshire is likely to stay in the Democratic column as the election approaches. Virginia has now moved into the Harris likely category, according to a new survey conducted by the Washington Post among 1,005 registered voters. This is significant, as the state previously polled in favor of Donald Trump. Rhode Island remains in the likely category for the Democrats, though there haven't been any new polls featuring Harris specifically. We are currently relying on the most recent polling data with Biden. With Biden as the Democratic candidate, polling shows a 7-point lead, placing Rhode Island on the edge of the likely category. Historically, the state has been a Democratic stronghold, consistently voting blue in every presidential election since 1988. Despite the lack of direct polling data for Harris, Democrats are not overly concerned about losing Rhode Island, as its electorate has shown strong loyalty to the party. However, the relatively narrow margins suggest there could be some shifts in voter sentiment worth watching as the campaign progresses. Colorado remains firmly in Harris's likely column, with the latest polling showing her holding a 15-point lead. This reflects the state's strong Democratic support in recent years, a shift that has been building since the 2008 election when Colorado transitioned from being a swing state to a more reliably blue state. In the 2020 election, Biden secured Colorado by a substantial margin of 13.5 points, further cementing its Democratic lean. If Harris maintains her current lead, it would continue to solidify Colorado's status as a Democratic stronghold in 2024, bolstered by progressive urban centers and a diverse electorate that favors Democratic policies. Thus, the likely category ends here, but things are not over yet as there are some surprising polls coming soon. Now we move on to the leaning category, where the respective candidate is leading by a margin between 2 and 7 points. Starting with Iowa, the latest Zogby Analytics poll of 656 likely voters shows Trump with a 4-point lead over Harris. This is a drop from previous polling, but the state remaining red is consistent with past performances, where Trump won by 9.4 points in 2016 and 8.2 points in 2020. Once a competitive battleground, Iowa has shifted toward being a more reliably Republican state in recent years, largely due to its rural conservative voter base and stronger support for Trump's populist message. North Carolina has moved into the lean category for Trump, following the latest poll from Tip Insights, which surveyed 973 likely voters and shows Trump with a 3-point lead over Harris. This marks a strengthening of Trump's position compared to previous polls, where the margin was slimmer. In 2020, Trump narrowly won the state by 1.3. And while North Carolina has been competitive, this new lead suggests a more stable Republican advantage heading into November. With its 15 electoral votes, North Carolina remains a key state for both campaigns, but Trump's current edge places it firmly in his column for now. Kansas remains in the lean Trump category, with the latest polling showing a 5-point lead for the former president. This is a notable decrease from the double-digit margins Kansas has provided Republicans in the past. Trump won Kansas by 14 points in 2020, but this smaller margin indicates a shift, potentially driven by changing demographics and political dynamics within the state. Moving to Florida, the latest poll conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies among 1,465 likely voters shows Trump with a 6-point lead over Harris. Florida has long been a critical swing state, with its large and diverse electorate often reflecting national trends. With Florida's 30 electoral votes at stake, any further tightening of the race could put the GOP in a challenging position. As always, Florida will likely be decided by turnout in key areas, such as the I-4 corridor in South Florida, which could swing the election in either direction. Trump concludes his leaning states and now sits at 234 electoral college votes, not far off from the magic number of 270. Starting with Harris's leaning states, Maine's 2nd District, which has leaned Republican in recent cycles, now shows a 5-point lead for Harris, according to a new poll by the University of New Hampshire Survey Center conducted among 432 likely voters. This district, known for its independent streak, voted for Trump by a margin of 7.4 points in 2016 and 7.3 points in 2020, making the new polling data particularly noteworthy. Michigan has shifted back into the lean category for Harris. According to the latest Quinnipiac University poll conducted among 905 likely voters, which shows Harris holding a 5-point lead over Trump. This represents a notable gain for Harris in a state that Biden narrowly won by 2.8 points in 2020. Michigan, with its 15 electoral votes, remains a key battleground, and the 5-point advantage suggests that Harris has regained momentum. However, with the state's history of close races, both campaigns will continue to invest heavily in securing Michigan as the election approaches. Pennsylvania has flipped into the lean category for Harris, with the latest Quinnipiac University poll conducted among 1,331 likely voters giving her a 5-point lead over Trump. This is a significant shift in one of the most crucial battleground states, which Biden narrowly won by 1.2 in 2020. With its 19 electoral votes, Pennsylvania is a top priority for both campaigns, and Harris's 5-point lead suggests she has gained momentum in the state. However, given Pennsylvania's history of tight races, both parties are expected to continue focusing on this key state. As Election Day approaches, Minnesota also finds itself in the lean category for Harris, with the latest polling data showing a slight edge for the Democratic candidate. According to a new poll conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies among 617 likely voters, Harris leads Trump by 7 points. This margin indicates that while Minnesota continues to lean Democratic, the race remains competitive. In both 2016 and 2020, Minnesota leaned toward the Democrats, with Biden winning by 7.1 points in 2020. Harris's current 7-point lead suggests a similar race compared to previous elections. Minnesota's status as a key state to watch remains unchanged, and both campaigns are likely to intensify their efforts here as Election Day approaches. Nebraska's 2nd District, a historically competitive area, has shifted in favor of Harris and is now classified as a lean win for the Democratic nominee.
According to the latest poll from Survey USA conducted among 570 registered voters, Harris holds a 5-point lead over Trump. This district has been a battleground in recent elections, with Biden winning it by 6.6 points in 2020. Nebraska's 2nd District, which includes Omaha and its suburbs, has experienced changing demographic and political attitudes in recent years, contributing to its competitive nature. The district's shift towards the Democrats is notable given that it hadn't voted blue in a presidential election since 2008. If Harris can maintain or grow her lead, it will present a critical victory for Democrats in an otherwise conservative state. Moving on to New Mexico, Harris is currently leading by a margin of 7 points, indicating that the race is tightening in this state. This data is particularly surprising to the DNC when compared to the Biden's win of 10.8 points in 2020. The closing gap could be due to Trump's increasing popularity among Hispanic voters, which may be contributing to narrowing margin in New Mexico. The election in November will apparently be very exciting. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video and turn on the notification bell. See you in next video. Thank you.